Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Star in Focus podcast. I'm your host, Deanna Oakes, and I have with us the wonderful Amy Armstrong. Hey, Amy, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the invitation.
Oh, absolutely. We're really happy to have you. We're just excited about the venture into inclusivity and bringing voice and all of the different things that we don't always, all of us that have been in the industry know about. So I'm excited to hear some of the things you can tell us about voice writing. And specifically, I want to know a little bit more about you and your story and how you got into voice writing.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's a long trajectory and journey. So I started my court reporting career in 2013, and I was a digital reporter at the time, actually. I had had a long career in hospitality management and had just opened a celebrity chef concept in Pearson International Airport in Toronto, and I
Oh,
hated
wow.
it. So
I'm
I
sure.
I was talking to family. I was miserable. I had just hired 150 people who needed security clearance and all the kinds of I's and T's to dot
Yeah.
and cross. And just was letting family know, oh my gosh, like I can't believe the headache I'm dealing with and thinking about what I was going to do next. And my grandfather was a pen writer, and he had retired from his career, 50-year career as a court reporter, and his protege was running the family firm now called Nimigan Mihailovich here in Hamilton, Ontario. And she needed someone to run the front desk because someone had taken a slip and fall in the Canadian winter. So natural conversation went from me doing the management stuff I'd always done to had I ever considered court reporting. And despite the fact that my grandfather had had this lengthy and very prestigious career in court reporting, I'd never contemplated it. So came to it honestly, did a couple of months of shadowing digital reporters that were taking down and making their own transcripts in that kind of a context. And gosh, in 2015, I became a single mom. And so I decided at that time I'd been doing deposition style stuff here in Canada called examinations for discovery work. And I'd been producing all of my own transcript, had already the realization I couldn't do it fast enough for what I needed to do. And so I wasn't able to produce enough money or fast enough. I needed a method. I needed a shorthand method. We're talking 2015. So the ASR products weren't yet in development that we see now. So I was ready to go the steno route, but I was 35 and I got a really honest take from a school owner in Texas who is quite famous, who said to me, I probably wasn't the optimal candidate given all of this situation, looking at the situation broadly of what I
Sure.
was dealing with as a potential student and that I was already a working reporter.
Right.
So I happened to be in the lunchroom on a break, and I had all of these lovely court reporter mentors, voice writers, digital reporters, stenographers, and we'd all been working together for quite a while. I was the Nepo baby who was there, and they were like, you know what? You should think about voice. And I do not know how to this day, but International Real Time, there was an ad in the office somewhere. I read it. By the end of the day, I had enrolled myself in International Real Time Court Reporting Institute. And that's where it started. That's where it sort of,
Wow.
that's my trajectory of coming to voice writing. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it was like a 9 month journey through school. And then my first certification, my first certification
9 months
test.
it took you to get through school? Girl, it took me like a million years. It took me so
This
long to get through school. I'm
this is what I
very
want people to
jealous.
realize though, like, because so many people think that voice writing is a quick journey. Like, I am still learning and instructing and learning myself today. But because we speak English and the shorthand method is going to utilize English phonetic sounds that we're used to, it is easier to develop the shorthand method that gets you to a proficiency where you can pass a certification. That
Yeah.
does not mean you have the skill set that you need in order to be a very comprehensive voice writing reporter on site in a courtroom in a deposition. But we can get ready. And I was super focused. Like, I will be honest, I was using every free moment outside of reporting. I was using a scopist at that time in order to be able to focus on my studies. And I knew that it needed to happen fast for me. So I was lucky, and it was a self-paced program. Like, it was sort of like all the pieces fell into place for me. But
Yeah.
9 months is fast, fast, fast.
Yeah, it is. You should
Yeah.
feel so proud. I mean, all of it
Thank you.
sounds like it was very circumstantial, right? Like there's a time in your life where you just know you got to buckle down and, do it, and you did it. And what did Grandpa say?
Oh my goodness. So, I mean, the different things that he has said to me over the course of my career, I've been so fortunate. He actually passed away 2 years ago, but I had his mentorship all the way up into his mid 90s. And at first, the digital, I mean, when you were a shorter reporter in the 90s, you sent in the office manager with a tape recorder. Like, it's been pretty common that if you couldn't cover everything that you needed to, an agency would find a way to fix the problem, and a cassette player was probably going in that room. So I think this notion that digital reporting is at all new, or that it's a threat to the other methods, is sort of ridiculous, in my opinion. At least it is in my market. It's by no way the competitive, because a digital reporter would never do the same kind of work. So his first was like, oh, that's nice, honey. And then when I started to learn the voice writing, he had always dictated his pen notes and sent them out to a typist. So I said to him, you were doing it the long way. Like, at that point, the methods got competitive, where it was what was
Sure.
better, pen or voice. And so we started to have those sort of like fun debates around the dinner table. And then I showed him what I was doing with software, with Cat. And he couldn't believe it. He just could not believe that it was possible to use Cat and speak and use the silencer and to see it in real time. Those were the moments, I think, that he really saw what voice writing is capable of. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How
lucky.
great. And what a nice little sort of I don't know if we want to call it like an aha moment, but just like, just to be able to show him like this is what it's capable of and see him learn and realize. And that's what it's all about, right? Is the education piece of it
I
too.
was tired of him calling it AI. Like, it was artificial intelligence that I wasn't working. I said, Papa, I'm working with probability. There's lots of chance in it, but I'm eliminating all the chance. It's the human who's controlling the speech recognition engine that makes the
Right.
difference.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
that was such a fascinating conversation to get to have, because when I started to write real time, we had different conversations, because he only ever wrote real time, as far as I'm concerned. He never used a backup ever. So to me, if you started reporting in the 40s or 50s and you were taking it all down, it's the same level of pressure that we have as a real time writer. It's the same cortisol spikes. It's the same sorts of circumstances that we're in, because if we don't get the record, and if he didn't get the record with pen, then the record didn't reflect what was said. So
Right.
it felt like there were a lot more similarities as I got closer to real time that we could compare from a career sort of standpoint, which was great. It
Yeah.
was amazing.
Yeah, I love that there was that generational sort of passing down of, even though it's, different methodology, like you said, it's the professional in the room and you sort of have a kindred spirit, even though, it's different methods, you guys are on the same journey. Like you said, it's the same. I love that you said cortisol spikes, because yes, I feel like I have only started to get gray hair since being in this profession, but the being in this room with these people. But I love it. I mean, it's wonderful, and there's so much flexibility. You're a freelancer as well, right? So you have your own schedule and an instructor, right?
Well, you know what? I don't like the word jack of all trades, because I'm clearly identifying as a female, but I do freelance work. I have worked in criminal court predominantly this fall. Actually, I spent in criminal court writing trials and real time trials, murder trials, death penalty trials, that sort of thing.
Wow.
Um, yeah, I work as a captioner as well. So I do it all, I think, at this point. But that has been because voice writing still doesn't have the same equity in terms of hireability. So I find that despite the fact that I've been real time certified here in Ontario for since 2019, I got my real time designation in 2019. I still have not been given a real time job here in the province I live in. I'm able to get them elsewhere. I'm able to caption for those firms, but they will not trust me to write real time, which is a struggle when you're in a market like that. And you know that you've already demonstrated the proficiency and the skill that should allow you the opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. That is very, very interesting. Do you think so? It sounds like you said, it's potentially because they don't believe, even though you have the certification. What would we need to do to sort of make it equitable? Do you have any ideas? I mean, you already have the certification, which honestly is what I thought was the only thing, that would make it so that it's viable. But do you think there's something else?
Yeah, I do. And I think it's the culture shift that we are all looking for in court reporting right now. I think that when we start to prioritize how the shorthand method over the end transcript production or the real time that's being provided to the client, we're missing the equity piece. And
Sure.
so for me, knowing full well that I can caption for the Law Society of Ontario, and I've done that. I have captioned for the Law Society of Ontario. And so I've supplied real time to these lawyers at that level. What is the
Yeah.
difference from allowing me to do what I do best, which is Q&A? That to me is very clearly got nothing to do with me, and it's got everything to do with the culture of who is going to assign the work. And
Yeah.
so I try to take up space in those conversations. I have been trying to get access to, we have one province in which we cannot work here in Canada, that's British Columbia, but they have no interest in speaking to me. They have no interest in allowing me to demonstrate. They have no interest in me as a software trainer. I've offered to provide on my own dime. I've offered to go to British Columbia to their conventions, and I've offered to give free training that would be useful to a stenographer, or machine writer. And that really doesn't get me anywhere. That doesn't get me in the door to the conversation. So at that
Hmm.
point, I don't know. I continue to just show my writing and continue to go to the spaces where I am able to continue to grow as a court reporter and as a voice writer. And those
Yeah.
spaces look different than home, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I mean, I get that. There's certain culture that you can only do so much in, and you obviously are doing your best to put yourself in places where they are welcoming. I mean, it sounds like you're doing both, which is really, really exhausting, just even talking about it. But I'm
Yeah,
so happy that at least at Star, that's what we're about is being inclusive. I mean, there's so much to learn from each other. I'm baffled and intrigued that you have education for machine writers because I'm a machine writer.
right.
But I mean, I am so interested in the other avenues and the other methods. And I would love to see what you could teach me on
Right.
machine writing. Yeah, that's fascinating.
This is the thing that I love the most about the potential for the community at Star. The collaborations that happen across methods open your eyes. And so for me as a digital reporter, I used WordPerfect to produce my transcript. Oldest, tiniest, is there an older word
Right.
processing? I don't think so, but it has all of the bells and whistles that you needed for transcription. So the shortcuts, the shortcut text extenders are all there. If you port
Sure.
that over to your CAT software and you utilize it during your real time, I'm able to stroke because I'm a voice writer. So if I've got my mask and I'm wearing it like an elephant because I'm on site, or I'm using an open mic because I'm at home, I'm able to now use another method at the same time as I'm using this method. I'm not saying everybody's going to do that, but
Sure.
I'm able to do that. And then what I loved about being in those more competitive markets is that I've had phenomenal stenographer, machine writer, um, mentors that have helped me in the software, and they see something that I'm doing and it's eye-opening, and I see something that they're doing and I'm like, wait a second, because the input doesn't matter at the end of the day. Once we're in the cat, the text coding is all the same. So if I'm using a voice trigger and you are using a stroke, we're still able to create the same output, but what I might need from a standpoint of the challenges I'm going to face as a writer might trigger something interesting for you. And
Yeah.
so those are the conversations I think I'm the most excited about seeing when the communities start to come together. Because without that, we're unable to leverage the skills that we all bring. And there are so many of those. And the similar, like we have the same end goal. I think that's what is also missing from the conversation is that notion that really we're providing the same product, the human in the room, and then the transcript. So both
Yeah.
of those things are unifying if we allow them to be.
Exactly. If we allow them to be, I feel like is paramount for sure in this discussion. And that's what Star is happy to be. Star is happy to be a place for people, and we want to be a place for people to come together. And that's what Unity Summit is about, is bringing people together. And some people are resistant, unfortunately, to all sorts of different things, right? But we can't always
Yes.
fight that battle. We have to focus on what we can do and how we can help each other. And it sounds like you have the right mind for being a resource, not only for voice, but for all of our profession. And I just think that's incredible. I,
Aw, thank you.
oh, thank you. I mean, we definitely need more people that are focused on the positivity of it. And so, speaking of, all the ways that you branch out and whatnot, so you are an instructor. I just learned that today. So, how
Great.
how is that going? Tell me more about that. I mean, how did you get into that? Did somebody ask you to teach them or?
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm telling you, some of these things are just so serendipitous in the way that they've occurred for me. And I like becomes the sort of thing where you think none of this is an accident in your own life and in your own like professional journey. But For me, I think I was so obsessed with getting my real-time designation. I really wanted that, and I really felt it was the only way that I was going to be really taken seriously in the market I wanted to work in here in Toronto, which I find comparable to like a New York market, a Chicago market. It's a big industry. We've got our own, Bay Street area with a lot of corporate material, a lot of high-end family law available, like the cream of the crop work that people want access to if they're a freelancer. And we don't have court access anymore here in Ontario because that's electronically monitored. So really my only option at this stage of where we are at in my market was to contemplate getting the real-time designation and getting it really fast and early on.
Yeah.
So it was important to me to do that. While I was going through that process of testing through NVRA, I think that was really when I realized that my circle around me needed to be deeper and that I needed more people that were talking about how they write because I didn't have access to that here. There aren't very many voice writers locally to me. There were a couple of us, but I was more experienced generally. And so I think from having the experience of going to convention on a yearly basis. I'm a convention girl. I believe in conference. I believe in community. I believe in that congregation. I think people talk about finding their team, their support people, their tribe, their chosen family, whatever language you want to use.
Yeah.
But if you're going to court report and you're going to court report 5 days a week because you're in criminal courtroom or you're a rover and you're new to the career, we kind of have to realize if we're going to be doing multiple different roles as a reporter and you need to build out your team of support, either with scoping or proofreading, best way to do that is by meeting other people who are like-minded, who you like vibe with, who you
Yeah.
have a connection with, so that when you're overwhelmed because you just got slammed with a whole bunch of back orders you weren't anticipating and you couldn't schedule for because they come out of nowhere, you've got this circle of other people that are certified, are trustworthy to some degree. You may not know them perfectly well, but at least there's some vetting process that's happened. And for me, without Congress at these events, there's no way for me to create that. So that's a long way to say that as I was meeting people in person and people were sort of seeing, because I think I approach things quite a bit differently than a lot of voice writers because of the mixed outputs, because I caption, because I do deposition, because I do court. You
Right.
have
Right.
to think differently when you're doing all of those things. It's not a transferable skill set. When people say to me, like, I want to do what you do and do it all, don't. It's exhausting. It's so like I wouldn't do it if I had the availability to get the access to the work that I want. I don't know that I would diversify in this way. Love that I have the knowledge, but it's been driven by a financial need. And
Sure.
so with the instruction piece, I was fortunate enough that by building these relationships with people, I've been able to sort of support the alumni community at International Real Time. And Sarah Flynn approached me to teach with her and to do a software presentation at the CCRA about a year after voice writing had been approved. And so that was my foray into instruction. I had done mentorship work before and I had done a little bit of private work with people, but nothing to a group. And when we got to California, what I realized from having the struggles that I'd had in my own career. And this is post-COVID. So we're talking about a whole cohort of people that have learned online, not had the sort of interfacing of colleagues. They were drowning and objectively drowning. And because the market is new for voice writing, they did not have the skills that they needed. And not because their instructors are not competent, but their instructors perhaps were teaching the other things in court reporting and didn't have yet the skill set to teach voice writing proper. So you may be totally suited to teach a certain portion of what we do as court reporters, but not suited to teach another. And so
Okay.
people needed these gaps filled in, and that sort of drove me towards finding a place for me in instruction, knowing I did not want to do basic level instruction, knowing I don't have the patience for it, knowing I didn't have the time for it either. That
Sure.
generally where I would focus would be in intermediate and in advanced level training. So it sort of happened down that pike for me. And then I've done a number of other conferences since then. I was at Wild West Roundup last year, which was a phenomenal experience with my good friend Kim Ray. We put together a real-time presentation about voice writing for that sort of other group of people that are starting to come together with voice and steno. Not quite warm water yet, but we're getting there. We're getting there. So I think it's been from seeing that there are other people who need to know in a fair way what voice writing looks like, what you can do with it, what you can earn by doing it, what opportunity is available. It's just sort of happened from there. And I don't know. It feels like it's happening really, really out of nowhere all of a sudden at the same time too, where like, I know I'm doing a webinar for Advantage in 6 weeks, and I found out, not found out, but the opportunity sort of pulled itself together in the last 10 days that was going
Oh,
to
yeah.
happen in 6 weeks. It's been a conversation that's been in process for a while, but
Sure.
the moment feels like it's happening for me now in terms of making the sort of switch from an everyday writer to somebody who's supporting other writers with education and with training.
Sure, sure. And I love that those doors are opening, because it sounds like the more need there is for you, obviously it's because the need is growing, and that's because people are now embracing other methodologies, which sounds like it's in the right direction. And I'm an
Oh,
optimistic person by nature, so that's, what I
I
take.
totally agree with that. And I think that what we found the first time that we went to California to see those new writers, the enthusiasm from machine writers and new voice writers alike. The machine writers that knew that it was imperative that if they wanted to like maintain their market and not allow other stakeholders to be the ones driving the conversation, they needed to control the narrative around what was going to happen. And by looking to colleagues that they had an open mind, I think for the first time in quite a while. We don't have closed markets everywhere, but we have them in some strategic places. And so when California was a closed market to us, we knew it was only a matter of time. And the same thing I would say when we have markets that are highly digital, or markets that look like they're going in that trajectory for as court reporters, and we start to panic, machine writers, voice writers alike start to panic about that. To me, that is when you need to get into the conversation the
Yeah,
most,
yeah,
because if we are not controlling the narrative around what the possibility pitfalls are of that, and I can tell you as a former digital where my weaknesses were in that method. I'm aware of what they are. I can tell you now as a voice writer writing, if I were remote or on site, what weaknesses I would bring to the table. You
sure.
want people having that meaningful conversation if we're talking about being guardians of the record. And if you're a
Absolutely.
guardian of the record, you can, as long as you're a certified person providing the transcript, I'm not concerned with your method personally, but we get wild
Right.
west when other people start being in control of the narrative around what court reporters do. And the other stakeholders, our adjacent professions, do not understand what we do not understand how we do it, and really
Right.
haven't ever taken an interest in figuring those things out, despite the fact that we are the mirror to their brilliance.
Right. I love the mirror to their brilliance. That's very cool. But I mean, absolutely, you're spot on. And I know one of our team leaders, George Catuno. I don't know how
I've
familiar you
met,
are with him, but he
I've had
talks
the
all the
pleasure.
time about controlling the narrative and taking charge before a disruptor comes in, and that's what it's all about. And I think that's really what we are trying to focus on, is unifying us so that we are stronger together, right? Then, there doesn't seem like a lot of benefit, in my personal opinion, by having these disagreements over how you get to, the finish line. Um,
And
so
I think for that sort of a conversation too, you'll see that the majority of real-time voice writers are disengaged from that conversation. We're not having it anymore. I'm not proving myself. You're welcome to look at my Instagram, Stenovox, and see that I can do what I say I can do. The
sure.
videos are there that demonstrate, and that's why they were there, honestly. I've had
Yeah.
people say to me in my personal life, like, what drove you to create an Instagram account? I'm not an influencer, in my opinion. I'm an educator, and I'm showing what we can do as voice writers with that account. That's the intention.
Yeah.
So I demonstrate a lot on that account. I also try to give like little nuggets of information that I don't think are going to be overwhelming to people. But I kind of think I'm a disruptor, if I'm honest, Deanna. I'm not sure that I think I'm a disruptor to the conversation, because I am not your average digital reporter. I'm not your
Sure.
average voice writer. And so sometimes I think we can still have a disruptive not necessarily person, but someone whose ideas are disruptive that can bring value to the conversation.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. I agree. And I think too, the disruptor, because I would say that yes, I'm sure there are plenty of people that potentially could see you as a disruptor, but in my
I
mind,
hope so. I hope so.
in my mind, I think, it doesn't sound like the education or the message that you're trying to get across is anything negative, right? And so in my mind, if somebody is, holding information or even being a gatekeeper,
Yes.
and trying to monopolize something, and you're coming in with this, vision of kumbaya and, can we all just get along? I'm sure they would say that you are a disruptor, but that's not how I would see it, and I guess I'm looking for a better way to articulate that. But yeah, so let's get shirts made that say disruptor then, like just okay, we'll go with that,
You know,
That's what
I think that we also too though, like for those of us who do want to take up the space and create this community that doesn't see method as a barrier to collaboration, I think we have to be aware that that is threatening to people who are not being truthful about the ways that they're making the record. And so
there
when I've
yeah.
tried to think about who is trying to silence the conversation, it is usually people who are threatened by the notion that the RSR or the Phoenix product is going to put them out of business. And usually they are either someone who hasn't hit their speed on the machine or someone who isn't doing their own voice writing with cat software. They are normally taking down the record or pretending to take it down with their mask and then sending it out to a typist. And I'm not going to pretend that doesn't happen in voice writing, just like we know there are people who go out and they can only write 140 words a minute with their machine. We know it, right? We know that they're doing it. But those are the people that I generally, and I don't like to point fingers, and I just did, but, and I literally, I just pointed my fingers as I was saying it. Um, I think that we just need to be honest about the conversation and why people have a motive to stop collaboration or to stop the progress. I'm not
Right.
interested in pretending that the AI products aren't here, that speech to text is not here. That would be a disservice to myself as a professional that utilizes a speech recognition engine. And so to me, I'm so fortunate that I had my grandfather because he actually sat on the board of the NCRA in the 1970s. And he did a
Oh,
couple of terms. I know, right? Canadians that come down there and we take your seats. But we like to do it. We do.
everybody needs
We,
their effort.
we yeah, we do. And so he, as a pen writer, was there in a pivotal moment as well from a technology standpoint. And he was the kind of guy that was the maybe an ex-leader. And he sat down and he said, no, I'm a pen writer. My time as far as technology has come and gone. I'm here to support. He went on to be, president here in Ontario and to continue to be in other roles, but to lead NCRA in the 70s while there was a technological change happening with computers, he felt
Yeah.
he was not suited for that. And that's ethical leadership to me. And that's what's been modeled for me in court reporting. I've been so fortunate. So when we were having conversations about what would drive me and what would drive my leadership and my desire to be a part of these conversations, they were really centered in that sort of family value of caring about the role of the court reporter first, but also knowing that sometimes we sit down and we don't disrupt or we wait our turn. And um, I think that I what I struggle the most with is the gatekeeper mentality in the people who have been comfortable with their mediocrity. Um,
Sure.
that's okay, right? Not everybody has the time and space to excel as a court reporter at particular times in their life. You don't need to be searching for your real-time designation while you're raising 3 kids. That's fair. And I'm not saying that they don't have a right to securely do their job as a court reporter. But what I'm saying is, could we do something that would provide you with a better skill set so that you could do it better? And that's the purpose of the collaboration. Like
Yeah.
maybe I have something I could tell somebody about AI that would help them who's working in that method and not utilizing the software to its fullest. Maybe I would
Yeah.
have something to say, as a trainer and as an educator that could open eyes. And so that's why I struggle so much when I see people just shut it right down and be like, these people that don't have these conversations. It also turns people off from even entering the space to begin with, which was my experience at NVRA in my second conference, hearing respected voice writers negatively speak about digital reporting, and then being the disruptor I am and having to grab the hot mic and say so. You don't know who's in this room. You do not
Sure.
know where people have come from or what their trajectory is.
Right.
And you've just
Right.
insulted me. So
Right.
you're telling me I don't have a right to be here today because of something I did in order to make money. You've made it very personal,
Sure.
without having an awareness of really who you're speaking to. And I got a lot of feedback after that moment in 2018. And I've never forgotten it. I've never forgotten the elder in our community who said those things to me, and then apologized afterwards. But I don't believe had a meaningful shift in the way that they thought about it.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
I think that's the really too what gets under my skin. I don't even remember where it sort of clicked for me, but somehow during a conversation or something, it just came about that like somebody literally puts themselves through school, digital reporting, and they come
yes.
out and now they're looking, and then they come and they're faced with all of this vitriol. Like my heart breaks for that person. Like, what did this
Oh,
person do to
Deanna,
deserve that? It's like I just
Deanna,
don't understand.
leaders of the communities, both machine and voice writers, are terrible. And I can tell you, when I was a digital who was going to voice writing school and a working reporter, trying to join things like encouraging court reporters on Facebook, you are a button pusher. Messages like that from the moderators sent to you. I, I'm a single mom learning a shorthand method. I produce my own transcript. I don't know why you're so angry at me, right? Like that's the
Right.
response your average person is going to get. They don't know about the culture. They're new. They came here on social media. They're looking to be encouraged as a court reporting student. And that's what they're met with. Like,
Yeah.
it is a wild experience to me that leaders in our profession, court reporters, don't see and that's been going on. I mean,
For a
I'm
long.
almost 10 years, right? Since I was the student, since I was
Yeah.
10 years. And that
Yeah.
has not changed. In fact, I think it's louder. And I hate it. I hated it for me. I no longer engage on social media with people who are going to be that belligerent. I just
Sure.
cannot, I cannot, but I don't think that I see enough people saying, don't represent us this way as a court reporter. I don't want to be viewed as a mentor who thinks that's acceptable. I don't want to be viewed as a voice writer who would allow another voice writer to speak ill to another method. Like, none of it would be okay with me. So
Right.
it's really surprising to me how many people have gotten away with publicly being anti a particular method and have still maintained the respect of their colleagues. I just don't respect it.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's crazy to me too in our profession, right? Because we work in the legal field. And so I don't actually have social media, and that's just because I'm too sensitive for I can't handle it.
Yeah.
But it's just so crazy to me that our niche industry, right? We work in the legal field, so we see it day in and day out. It's like, why would you put anything negative like that in writing? I just can't wrap my mind around these people that put some of this. I mean, because I hear the horror stories, right? I'm on
Yeah.
the board. I mean, I have conversations with
Yeah.
people. Even though I'm not seeing it firsthand, I
Yeah.
know that there are some pretty horrible things that people say out there, and I just cannot make that like I cannot make that make sense in my mind that you work in the legal field. You see how things are brought to light, text messages and everything are buried from the depths, to prove someone's
Mhm.
character or whatever it is. And it's like you're out there putting this stuff in writing that's just, yeah, I don't understand it. But
I think that
that's
people
just,
have not had to be accountable for it. I think that there's been no consequence to being unkind within the
yeah,
community. And I think that's why you find so many people right now sort of looking for a different set of colleagues and community. Now, whether or not they're turning away from an organization for a particular policy reason, or whether or not it's for personal politic reasons. It can be for lots of reasons that people are sort of turned off and looking elsewhere. But I see a lot of it right now, and I've seen a lot of it for quite a while. Um, the social media stuff is hard too, I think, because you have the generational gap and people use it differently within court reporting. Like, we have a specific kind of market. I say market a lot these days. I don't know why. It seems like it's my favorite word. But court reporting, to me, there are lots of elders who worked in a particular way pre-COVID. And then we had this influx, I think, because of social media, where lots of people saw cool TikToks and got the idea that they could learn to be a court reporter. It's a cool job. You get to listen to true crime. There's all this kind of popularization in some
Right.
ways to make it seem cool. The nerdiest job on earth seem cool.
I
Like
know.
anybody who's going to care whether or not you got every comma and whether you've got the right spelling of like some like tract this week was my obsession. Is it the right tract spelling? Because we're talking about oil and gas. Like,
Yeah.
who are you finding but the neurodivergents who are going to care to a level that
Right.
like,
Yes.
but it did get popularized. And so there was this notion, I think, in big markets because California had opened, 6-figure career, you can work from home, learn to voice write in 12 weeks and boom, go get certified and off you go. And you're making all this money and you can do it and it's easy.
Right.
And couldn't be further from the truth that any portion of the journey is easy. It's not inexpensive. The quality
Right.
training is super expensive. Like, and then
Yeah.
people show up into these spaces where they think they're going to get an authoritative message, and they do, but it is not one of welcome. It is not one that's kind. It is not one
Sure.
that comes from a place of looking at the actual educational moment of like technology and where we're at necessarily.
Right. Right.
So it's nice to see new space opening up that has those particular things that I think are important to most people who are writing right now. They care about AI. They care about what's going on with audio. They care about how to deal with these new pieces of technology that were not an issue. Windows 10 and Windows 11, completely different ball games for voice writers of what we're facing. Dragon 13 versus Dragon 16, huge differences in our base programs that we're using. We're not even talking cat yet. So
Right.
I think that meaningfully the conversation, at least for us as voice writers, has really changed since COVID. So it has changed because of different states where we can now work that we couldn't before, has changed because of technology, has changed
Yeah.
because we report remotely more. So it's a
Yeah.
lot of different reasons that there's so much change for us.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. It's also amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's how I kind of look at it, right? I know a lot of people were kind of against the remote, reporting, but for me, I mean, I'm wearing socks right now. I don't have shoes on, I do not
Oh,
drive and pay for parking and sit in traffic and all of those things. So I, like I had mentioned before, I tend to err on the side of, positivity and like what
mhm.
are the ways that we can, make this work for us, make this better? How is this, but I certainly have heard of people charging more for remote reporting. Whereas, like, I'm like, if I can please stay home, how
Yeah,
can I make this so it's beneficial for both of us? But
yeah.
where do you see the future of voice writing? I mean,
Uh,
because I didn't know, I think again, part of my lack of being in social media is that I have a much like if somebody shares a TikTok with me, then
yeah, yeah,
via a text message, I'll see it, but I don't have it. So
yeah.
if there's an influx in voice writers and you're
Hmm.
teaching what you were before, so
Yeah.
what do you see the future like?
Oh, wow. That's a great question because we really are in such this state of flux right now. What I see happening in California is so exciting. I see a lot of new voice writers that are getting opportunities like there because there was such a shortage there. And
Yeah,
so the one thing that they are all sort of being encouraged to do is to move towards real time right away. And
yeah,
I think that's why people are find an interest in what I do because I focus on real time. And so for me, the future for me is real time. It is real time scoping. It is real time editing. It is utilizing the skill set, using the CAT software to its fullest. So
yeah,
when I professionally train people, that's the foundational skill we start with. They know how to get into this. I teach Eclipse Fox predominantly, but we can use our connection magic feature with a steno writer. I get in my steno writer mentors software all the time whenever she'll let me, so that I can shadow, I can scope for her, I can learn from her expertise because she's got decades of experience on me. I'm learning every time I get to shadow for her. So I try to open up my software as often as possible, but I also really love to get into my client software, the individual reporter that I'm working with, so that I see the actual environment they're writing in. I'm listening to where they are. I'm with them during their day and I'm auditing what they're hearing. I'm better able to strategize that way. So I'm watching them write. I'm auditing their actual, output, their steno, but I'm
sure.
also listening to the environment to see, if she did this or he did this, that would get a better outcome. Where can we tighten up? Oh, they need coding here. Their dictionary. Oh, what's going on with numbers? It's a different approach, I think, because I really find that by being in that moment with them, they feel supported. They're more confident as a new writer. And most of these
Yeah.
people have not been reporting for a year that are looking for this kind of support, because when they're going out to audition for a courtroom, they're real timing. And the expectation that any new reporter would be capable of providing a quality real time feed in the first year, I just think is so out of whack with what is realistic. That is a big ask of the majority of people, that they would be
I think it's a big
confident.
ask, even, yeah, I think it's a big ask for everyone, right? I mean,
Period. Yeah. I think
just, yeah,
real
just
time's
there's so
hard. How
much
many
to
of us are
learn.
there?
Right.
Yeah.
In the first year, I think the first, 2 to 5 years is more reasonable in my personal opinion. There's just so much more than just the skill set alone, right? I mean, the skill
Thank
set is
you.
monumental, but there's so many more professional standards and, ethics and things like that that have to be, not only top gleaned from experience, it's a whole package deal that you have to learn. And so I definitely think that that's asking a lot as well.
And you have to be in the right moment in your life too. And I've been fortunate
Sure.
enough to have people mentor and be really forthcoming with me about that. Okay, Amy, it's 2019. You have a 4-year-old. You want a real-time job? No.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, wait, I didn't even think about it that way though. No, of
Right.
course not, right? I've got to go pick my kid up from daycare, but the attorneys don't care about that. And if you're talking about real-time work, we're talking about either in a courtroom where you are to the service of your judge for sure, they're going to control your schedule, or these attorneys. And if we're doing real time, it's high-end litigation. They don't care about your kid needing to be picked up from daycare. So let's get realistic. If you
Yeah.
want to be in the space, you've got to be able to provide the service. So to me, those are other factors that I think don't really get talked about when we're talking about real time and what the expectation is. But yeah, I'm with you, 2 to 5 years, and it's a big ask. And I still think I've been trying to figure out, because so many of these new voice writers have this unfair expectation of themselves that they're going to be perfect and able to do these things. And I'm really trying to shut that narrative down, that first of all, none of us are perfect. Our
Right.
certification doesn't even require it of us. But yeah, you're never going to get positive feedback from your clients as a court reporter. They're only ever going to email you to say, really, like, oh, can you check page 8? Because I think you made a mistake. And by the way,
Right.
you missed all this testimony. And I know I said this. Can you check the audio down here? And gosh, you spelled this wrong. And probably your punctuation was like every single feedback email, the majority of people are going to get in their first 5 years is going to want, like, you're going to want to get under the duvet. So you already are internalizing the idea that you should be perfect. The
Yeah.
certification has allowed that you're not. Like, to the best of my skill and ability today is what I try to hammer home. Today, the day you put your signature on that page, did you mean it? Because then you met the certification requirement. Like, it may not have been the best you are ever, but all that you have to do is the best you are today. And that is more than adequate if you are a certified reporter. But the
Right.
real time, oh, yeah. So the future to me means we're all real time. We're all real time right out of school. No, just kidding.
I know, right? Just wave the wand.
No, I think to me, what I see is a lot of really dedicated professionals that are so invested in the notion of what being a court reporter is. And it's an amazing job. Like, everything about this career speaks to my soul. I loved the opportunity, even though listening to a death penalty murder, that you're real timing, right? Even though I've
Yeah,
listened
that is
to
a lot.
the murder of a toddler, right, by a
Oh,
caregiver,
yeah.
even though
Yeah.
even those are never enough to say I don't love what I do. I
Right.
love that I have the opportunity to support the justice system from both sides. I'm a court reporter and I'm a mother. When I walk in and I'm writing real time because someone's got their life on the line, their child has been taken and their child could be put to death. I'm the both mothers in my
Right.
view, and I'm the guardian of that record, and I care about both of those mothers' children. And
Right.
by being able to have the privilege of being that reporter, I take it so seriously. It matters so much to me.
Yeah.
It's the same thing when I'm the captioner and I'm providing the accessibility service for somebody who is like me and is neurodivergent, or when it's my son has a deaf child in his class. The value that I see in creating the accessibility through our ability as the humans to provide the stable real time, the stable reality of what a record is and what has occurred. is so valuable, and it's so misunderstood by the judges, by the attorneys, by the
Yeah.
professors, by the people in the universities. Like, if I could have a wish for the future, it would be that we stop fighting with each other about that and start organizing around the people who do not understand how vital we are. We are
Right.
so vital to the
Yeah.
justice system and to accessibility services across the board. What we
Yeah.
do matters. It matters
Yeah.
absolutely every single time we do what we do. And that creates such positivity in my life. It creates such meaning for me. I feel so blessed. And so to me, if you can't be excited about that, like, I don't know. It's just easy for me to be excited about the future of voice writing because I know whatever I'm doing will support somebody else in a trial, like a trial in
Yeah.
their life in some way,
Yeah.
whether or not it's an actual trial. But
Right.
yeah,
Right.
I think there's a lot to be said for what's coming next for us in terms of a body of certified tradespeople. We are certified tradespeople across the board as well.
Yeah.
Digitals need a cert. We need to get them certified, as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned. But
Well, yeah, there are definitely digital certifications, and I agree with you that we all need to be certified. But so here's where I'm at right now. I feel like I want to be best friends. So we could probably talk for hours.
yeah,
But I really love the last thing that you said, being the positivity of us all being certified and working together for this noble profession, right?
oh,
To be a part of the justice system, to come together and advocate for how important a human being in the room with control of the record, producing a verbatim record, that sort of unification, that picture in my mind of us all
mm-hmm,
in the same,
mm-hmm,
fight for justice is
yeah.
just delightful. And I kind of want us to end on that only because I don't know when we're ever going to stop talking.
You know, I have one little anecdote, and it's my grandfather's,
Yeah,
and I've been saying it a lot lately. And I believe it. I believe it. If you're smart enough to be a court reporter, you're too smart to be a court reporter, probably. And I think if we all just internalize that, that really it's a hard career. It's a wonderful career. And there's the beauty in the difficulty of it. But yeah, there's so much coming, I think, for the community if we strengthen and we come together. Love it. Love that.
absolutely. So well said, Amy. Absolutely. It has been a real pleasure chatting with you. And I am so
You
looking
as
forward
well.
to seeing you, hopefully at Unity Summit.
We're
So
crossing
fingers crossed.
fingers.
Yes,
We're
we
working on it.
are.
We're working on
And
it.
thank you for your time. And thank you, all of you, for tuning in. And we will see you next time. Bye.
Take good care.